I should let the fart zone live in the
Yeah.
frame.
Sure.
Yeah. There's no way I'm not making reference to it. Okay. So yeah.
I'll leave it up.
Looks like a filter in a sense, where like all your words are just passing through the fart zone into important. The microphone.
And honestly, I think that's always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
I had to turn the fan off in here for sound. CJ, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So it's Arizona, so it's gonna bake.
There you go.
So I'm gonna start to sweat over the course of the pod.
How's the weather in late May in Arizona?
Oh man, hot. He's got a baseball game that we're leaving for after the podcast. That's why we're doing it a little earlier. So it's one of the spring training fields. So it's gonna be. It gets hot. It gets around 100. So you try to go out, play ball earlier than later.
When I was in Dallas last weekend, it was 92 or 93 or something like that. Fucking hot, man.
Hot.
These people that say it's not the humidity. I'm sorry, brother. When it's 90 some degrees or 100 degrees, it's the heat. It's not just the humidity.
It's definitely hot.
Yeah, people are lying.
CJ, this new setup? What do we got here?
I just moved some monitors around. I'm still working on it. I for the longest time I had 2 monitors and my camera was like splitting them. So now I adjusted it slightly where it's flipped a little bit and the one monitor is straight in front of me and the other monitor is more off to the side. So instead of it being like I'm looking into a V, it's like an L more so.
We might have to get you more equipment. It doesn't look like your words are quite matching up to your voice. Do we need to send you one of those? Does Mike need to come over and show you how to do your setup?
Oh, is there? I haven't looked at it.
FaceTime me around midnight.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, that'll help out. Yeah, I might need some tips or tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still some fine tuning that I need to adjust, but we'll get there.
Talk to me about this couch, man. The couch is a futon. What do we got?
This is the futon. This was my couch in my old apartment. That is now my old Norman's designated area. Whenever
I love that.
Whenever the door's open.
I love when a couch gets downgraded
Yes.
to the backup couch.
Yeah, the basement couch.
Yeah.
I've
It's
had
an important transition for all couches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not very comfortable at all.
Yeah,
No,
but you
they
still got to
rarely
keep
are.
it.
Yeah.
It's
But you
better
can't
than
just
buying a new
give
couch.
it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Got to have the option.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go. Showtime, as they say. It's showbiz. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Body Bio. Get 20% off any Body Bio product with promo code Mike's Tummy at bodybio.com. Briggs Auction, the official auction of the process, briggsauction.com. And Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka, the official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe. Subscribe at rightstorickysanchez.com/newsletter. On the show today, a lot of Sixers rumors coming from a big giant article from one Jake Fischer, including one that says the Sixers, could just not do anything meaningful this offseason, but sign 1-year contracts. So that should be fun. That happens. Next, do you have Pascal Siakam regret the return of relationship advice? And we try to clean out the mailbag and the voicemail line. I mentioned Surfside. Mike, tell me if this isn't the most perfect Surfside scene. It's Memorial Day weekend. My wife, Valerie, went out and bought a cornhole set for our backyard. We were playing cornhole in the backyard, each with a Surfside iced tea, lemonade, and vodka. It's like a fucking commercial for Surfside.
There you go.
I guess it is a commercial for Surfside.
That is actually exactly what it is.
Yeah, it is a commercial for Surfside. Actually, one of them, we were putting them in the grass. One of them fell over, and also we'll find out if it's good fertilizer for the grass as well. Look, Surfside iced tea and vodka, the perfect summer drink. Only 100 calories, only a few grams of sugar, no bubbles because iced tea does not have carbonation. Also was at the Surfside golf tournament last week. Left with Ike and Jack, both left with some of the new flavor, the green tea and vodka. I think my favorite is the iced tea, lemonade, and vodka, but there's all different flavors now. There's like 7 or 8 of them. They're all awesome. You can go to statesidevodka.com, order yourself one of those combo packs, try them all. It's the perfect drink for summer. You got to be 21 though. Sorry, no summer for you unless you're 21. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, and coming to you live from the fart zone, that is one Mike Lavine.
We're here, baby.
There it is.
We're in the fart zone, which is my nephew's bedroom.
Yeah.
His younger brother gave him a gift of a fart zone sign, which is on the wall behind me in sunny Phoenix, Arizona for his high school graduation, which is very exciting.
There we go. Congratulations on the fart zone sign, and secondarily, the graduation.
It's big. 2 big moments in every boy's life.
Yep. And people in the chat are wondering about the injury that you obviously have suffered below the eye, whether that came from the ref or from basketball. Could you please update us on the eye, on the face injury?
Yes, I got popped in the eye by the very fart zone nephew.
Wow.
Playing a game of family basketball, which is our tradition when we come to Phoenix. So a lot of basketball being played. You get hit in the eye. I reached, he teached, and got a shoulder in the face. But that's how it goes.
So quick, just a couple of notes about current NBA playoffs, and we got this email from PJ. He said, "Do you have any Pascal Siakam regret? I was not enthusiastic about him when he was an option in December, but I'm starting to think that despite his flaws, he could have been a solid third guy on this team. He's only 30. He's 100 times better than Tobias, and he would have helped us on both ends. I genuinely think we would have avoided the play-in and had a chance to make an actual run this year. Plus, if we traded for him, we could have re-signed him this summer without renouncing Melton, Oubre, Batum, etc." What do you think? He was pretty good against the Knicks, by the way, like specifically good against the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember kind of going back and forth about Pascal. The idea of, this is what we deal with all the time in every offseason of like, you know, what's behind door number 3 is always like the perfect player. You know? It's like, well, this player has no weaknesses and is also young and in their prime and cost controlled and pretty undervalued, and so you can just basically probably get that magical guy for free. Siakam was not the perfect fit between Embiid and Maxey. Obviously, the off-ball shooting is a concern. Not a super willing 3-point shooter and not a super efficient one, but
and tends to be higher usage often, I would say. His best season statistically coming with Kawhi, actually, but
which is why I felt like had they acquired him for the price that the Pacers acquired him. Now, part of the Pacers getting him was Bruce Brown, and the Sixers didn't really have anybody else that would kind of fit that. Toronto wasn't fully rebuilding or anything at the trade deadline, even acquiring like Kelly Olynyk. They wanted to sort of retool on the fly. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, Siakam is the kind of player that the Sixers could have had and could still get, whether it's him or someone like him, of like big wing, 2-way-ish, can shoot, kind of a 3-level scorer. And the thing that most appealed to me was he is someone who can run pick and roll and take some of that creation ability off of Maxey, of all that so much of it was just everything running through Maxey. And Siakam has, he can pass, he can move, he can make decisions. He's kind of like got a little. I've always been intrigued by him as a kind of a funky player because he does like off foot stuff, wrong hand. He goes up with a shot on the drive like before you expect him to. It doesn't seem like he's kind of a little offbeat, off rhythm type of player, which is always tough to guard against.
It's also tough for me when I'm watching it. I think it's probably why he doesn't pass the eye test for me, because it doesn't look like a sort of smooth offensive basketball player. It looks like he's like scoring accidentally sometimes,
Yeah, it's certainly abnormal.
Yeah.
As far as things, but obviously shares somewhat of a similar background to Embiid, and it would have been really cool. I think that I wouldn't say that was wouldn't have been an A+ for me. I'm trying to put myself at the mindset at the time. Wouldn't have been an A+, but it definitely would have been probably closer to like a B+, and I would have convinced myself for that price, especially, like, this is great. They got the best player at the deadline type time, since the trade happened a couple weeks before the deadline. And the fact that they didn't make that trade and Indiana did, and they're in the conference finals and the Sixers are still not. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many times you can go like, not this guy, not this guy, not this guy. Imperfect.
They're all imperfect, or they wouldn't be available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's, and Siakam, because of the age thing and the money thing and the maybe relationship with Embiid, I think they're friendly. There's like, he might have been the best of the imperfect options, basically.
I think the one thing you didn't mention is Nick Nurse, who obviously coached him in Toronto.
Right.
So the two questions I have there on the Nurse thing, the first of all is you have to imagine at some point Daryl Morey said to Nick Nurse, "What about Pascal Siakam?" And they had a conversation about it. And then I do wonder what their relationship was like, in that there was some weirdness between Nurse and some of the players toward the end. And I don't remember if Siakam was one of them, though you would have to, like, one of the things that I thought was interesting is they kept talking about trading Siakam, and they did end up trading Siakam, which I initially thought was, oh, maybe there's a problem with him and the coach, but then they got rid of the coach and he's still gone anyway. So the Nick Nurse part of it is, I think there's like a lot of other stuff there with the Nick Nurse part of it, and the fact, as you mentioned, that it happened 2 weeks before the deadline. I wonder if they were sort of, surprised by the fact that it happened then. And I wonder if how engaged they were in that conversation with it happening so far before the deadline, when that sort of stuff usually doesn't.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think with every former coach, it's not Nick Nurse is unique in the sense of some people liked him and some people didn't, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think with Daryl, I think there are guys that Daryl is like not my kind of player about.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it seems like those guys are not who you'd expect, maybe, for him to go after. And I wonder if Siakam's on that list or not. But, obviously would have been a clear improvement on Tobias on both ends. Would have helped the rebounding issues. Would have helped a lot. Would it have been perfect? Probably not. But it would have been pretty good, and we would have at least gone, okay, maybe they beat the Knicks, maybe they avoid the play-in, whatever it is, hard to know. But you wouldn't have had to go into this offseason going, we
hope.
No idea who's going to be here once again. It could have been, okay, we got these three guys, let's see who we want to re-sign and if there's anybody else we can add to it. So, yeah, I mean, it's been door number 3 for a while, and that's never worked. So I would love for it to work this time.
Fingers crossed. And the second thing from the playoffs is, this sounds, very elementary, but it is striking me watching them with the Sixers going out in the first round and us not like engaged in the second round, how long they are and how injured everybody seems. Or even Anthony Edwards seems like he's run out of gas at this point to a certain extent. Luke is hobbling around there. The Celtics are missing Porzingis. The Pacers are now missing Halliburton. And by the way, we're not even at the finals yet. And this isn't this is not. I want them to keep Embiid no matter what. Like I just want to see it through with Embiid, but it just does start to strike you. Man, how is this guy going to get through every round of the playoffs? Like after a regular season, right? I mean, it has to. I think we just sort of put it out of our minds sometimes. But I'm watching these playoffs, thinking like, oh my God, how is this ever going to work like this with him? You know?
No, for sure. Playoffs are definitely long, especially when the Sixers lose early. I think that's always in the air that Embiid's gonna have to stay healthy for basically 2 months, or the team as currently constructed isn't gonna be able to win enough games. You know, it was cool. Obviously, the Celtics fucking pulled out another one last night. The Pacers should be up 2-1. A couple just crucial backbreaking mistakes in games 1 and 3 that are really frustrating as a Celtics hater. That you just need to be able to survive more without Joel. And that is like depth. Obviously, I don't subscribe to the play 6 guys and grind their bones into dust coaching style. Nick Nurse isn't Thibodeau, but he's pretty close. You just need more guys. You just need to trust more guys. And over the course of a season, you need to build them up and do it. Like I've been very impressed with Pacers rookie Ben Shepherd, who I don't think he played well last night or didn't play even that much, but like they played him over the course of the season, and he's made a bunch of plays in this playoffs where like defensively, because he's just like, he's 6'6", he's quick, he's going to be able to shoot, and he tries, and he has helped that team, and he's helped it because they gave him enough reps in the regular season to get comfortable and to get a feel for it and to build his confidence up. And they're in the Eastern Conference Finals partly because of like some of the plays he's made. Aaron Nesmith is another example of that, obviously in a bigger role. But like, you just have to get more guys. You have to get more guys that you trust, and you have to like let them play earlier and play through their mistakes. And obviously, you know, the Sixers have 4 players on the roster right now, so it's hard to know who is going to be that. But you're going to need to build them up because injury is going to happen. Obviously, the Sixers expected Melton and maybe Covington to be a part of the rotation, and they weren't. And you had to go deeper and deeper, and you had to count on Kyle Lowry and Nick Batum for a ton of minutes. I just need. I'm feeling more and more confident that you need more players that can do multiple things, that play their ass off, that can steal you extra possessions, and that for Embiid, having those kinds of guys will take the load off him, so he has to do less. Obviously, getting that third star, whoever he is, it's like you just kind of got to do everything. I know. It's like it's easy to say. I'm doing a little door number 3, maybe doors 3 through 8, but you got to hit on enough guys in the offseason, and then the coach, there has to be like enough of a working relationship with the coach being a part of that, going like, okay, we're going to need enough of these guys to break through and help us in the playoffs, or help us if somebody goes down and we need like a quick minute or something like that. Like it is long. It is long, and there are games that you're going to win that you need to win when your best guys don't have it. Like the Wolves have won games without Anthony Edwards playing his best basketball. The Pacers almost won a game without Halliburton. And the Sixers are going to have to be able to do that because the likelihood of Embiid being healthy for every single playoff game is pretty low. And so he's just got to ace this offseason, man. It's every step of the way he's got to hit on so many ways. And he hit a bunch last year. You know, Oubre was a massive hit, right? But he can't fail.
Well, also, I think what people don't always understand is that when they talk about like rather than 2 stars, and we'll get to this in a bunch, just like get a bunch of like great role players or whatever. Once people are sure about those guys aren't cheap anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of it is getting sort of not lucky, but you get Oubre for $2 million, and that's awesome. But like once Oubre proves that he's good again, then he doesn't cost $2 million again. And then it becomes much more difficult. And then, like Josh Hart's on a good contract, but he's making $20 million. Bruce Brown was making 25. So it's not quite as, and that's why, and again, we'll get to it when we get to the Jake Fischer article, that sort of like max player thing becomes tricky, but also a better route because you're a little more sure, almost you'd rather be sure of the $50 million guy than like unsure of the $20 million guy or something like that. I think it's a tricky scenario he's in, but this is, to your point, he can't fuck it up this offseason. Yep. Can't fuck it up. Body Bio, we love them. They're sponsors of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. We like to say partners. They're our friends. Mike from Body Bio, our friend. The great thing is we have friends with these great companies, and Body Bio is one of those great companies. They are a supplement company in South Jersey, family owned, family operated, and like really care about quality. Some of those bigger supplement companies, they're almost too big, and the quality control cannot be quite as good. Body Bio, they test every single batch of everything they put out. And if it does not come up to their quality standards, they send it back, they take it off the shelf. That's why occasionally at bodybio.com, you'll see something that is out of stock, might be out of stock for a month or two. It's because things have changed, their sources of the products have changed, and they need to make sure that it's right. Couple of the ones that we love, of course, I love E-Light. Now that it's becoming summer, E-Light becomes even more important. E-Light is your complete hydration solution. Being hydrated is not just water. You can drink a ton of water. You can drink your 64 ounces, but you need the right amount of electrolytes. And you don't want to have to drink those sports drinks that have artificial colors, artificial flavors, sugar, yada, yada, yada. E-Light is just electrolytes, 100%. You take a little bit of the E-Light, maybe a capful, put it in your drink in the morning, put it in your drink in the evening, and it solves that hydration problem. For me, it solved the cramping problem 100%. And gut health. If you are going to get one gut supplement, try sodium butyrate. Butyrate is spelled Butyrate. You worry about bloat, you're worried about being regular, you're worried about all that kind of stuff. Taking butyrate, sodium butyrate will be the best. If you can take one gut supplement, that's the one that you want to take. You want to go to bodybio.com. You can learn about all these products. They have a ton of them. We've talked about a bunch of them, liposomal vitamin C, Calm, all that stuff. Go to bodybio.com, use code Mike's Tummy. That is Mike's Tummy for 20% off anything, anytime, not just first order. Again, that is bodybio.com, code Mike's Tummy. So good reporting from one Jake Fischer. Keith Pompey is reporting all of this stuff today as if Jake Fischer didn't write it 4 days ago. So congratulations to Keith. Hope he had all his alarms set. But a couple of things I found interesting. One, like dead set on the third star thing. Dead set on third star and not, Embiid, Maxey, bunch of role players. Fischer, right.
Not surprising for Dow.
No, not surprising at all. But I thought that the numbers were interesting. I mean, look, you can find numbers to support any argument. But since 2012-2013, the chance a team reaches the conference finals nearly doubles from 18.5% to 30.8% when a roster, that's a little generous for nearly doubles, but whatever. When a roster boasts 3 top players compared to 2 top players, according to team building reviewed by Yahoo Sports. A top player being someone who made an all-star team or an all-NBA team within 2 years of the current season and played 29 plus minutes per game. The championship odds for 2 top players, 0.9% compared to 14% with teams featuring 3. Every title winner since 2013 has registered at least 3, with 2 exceptions, the Nuggets from last year and the Lakers from 2020. I think it's interesting, for people who don't believe in the 3-star thing. Of course, Minnesota has 3. Minnesota has 3. Dallas has, you would argue, 2, right? 2. Dallas has 2. The Celtics, of course, have 3. And who's your
third on the Celtics?
I guess Drew or KP or Derek White. They haven't made All-NBA or an All-Star team in the last 3 years. Derek White wasn't an All-Star team this year?
I don't think so.
Okay, you're right. Celtics would be 2. I think you could debate 3 on the Celtics, but if you're using those metrics, 2. And the Pacers, obviously, with only 2 2. Miles Turner has not made an all-star team, I don't think, over the last year. So here are the primarily focused on players. Paul George, OG Anunoby, DeMar DeRozan, who seems like wants to stay in Chicago, Donovan Mitchell, Brandon Ingram, and Jimmy Butler, who Jake Fischer writes most people think he will stay on the Heat. Mm-hmm. One thing I'm curious as to what you think, the Paul George versus OG Anunoby thing. A lot of people seem fixated on Anunoby because he is younger. But Paul George at this point today is way, way, way better than OG Anunoby. Like OG Anunoby is a good player, but if you're spending $45 million on each of them, OG Anunoby might never make an all-star team. Is a better defensive player than Paul George, but
by a lot.
But Paul George still an adequate defensive player. At one point was really, really good. I would say at this point he's still adequate. I think if you want to win a championship in the next 2 years, and by the way, OG Anunoby, people talk about Paul George missing games. OG Anunoby misses a bunch of games.
Sure.
Even just with the Knicks, has missed games with this elbow thing, which he had surgery on, and then still missed games with it again, and then the hamstring thing. So, I would much rather have Paul George at a max contract than OG Anunoby. I don't know how you feel on that. I guess I would stomach the OG thing. I just don't think he's giving you any creation, which is something that you want out of that position.
No, limited. I mean, felt like he got a bunch of straight line drives against us, which was annoying.
Yeah.
Tobias playing weirdly out of position, so OG can just body him. Yeah, I mean, there's such different players that it's really just what kind of team do you want to have? It's hard to say better or worse. Obviously, offensively, Paul George is significantly better. Defensively, OG I think is quite a bit better. Maybe not significantly, but definitely better.
By the way, Drew Holiday was an all-star last year, so in 2023.
Doesn't feel like it, does he?
And he was though.
Yeah.
So,
no, great player. Just sort of tailing into sort of the, he's a role player at this point.
Yeah,
Drew. Yeah, it's a matter of who do you want to get OG for less than you could get Paul George, OG and I'm just making up a guy here Malik Monk, right. OG and Malik Monk or Paul George, that kind of thing that you can do. It becomes the contracts game, obviously including some of the guys that the Sixers could re-sign. It's just, you were saying before about you got to hit every year. It's expensive every year. Daryl has, with the exception of really, he gave Dan House 2 years. He gave PJ Tucker 3 years. For the most part, he's tried to get expiring contracts or sign guys to small 1-year deals, usually at the vet min. And what prevents against having to go get another guy that next year, Kelly Oubre, becoming more expensive, is signing somebody to a multi-year deal as a role player, which Daryl seems to generally be reluctant to do. It helps when they're good, but when he's wrong, which he was with Dan House and PJ Tucker, the Korkmaz contract, which he played almost entirely all the way out as he was out of the rotation. Then it's just why is this guy not a veteran minimum? That. Why is this guy not expiring after this year? And why do we have to still account for that? But then it works out as a trade piece situation. KJ Martin is an example of somebody who, is going to be inexpensive. Do you want to sign him to a contract
that's tradable?
That's tradable.
Yeah, $10 million, $8 million, something like that.
Something, yeah. Whether it's KJ or I don't know, campaign or something like that, where you can go okay, this will help to match salaries in some way, and it wouldn't be backbreaking to move them in a bigger deal. So the idea of being patient, which you brought up, if you can't get the guy, it feels another punty thing, but you also don't want to find yourself in a hole in a Tobias hole, which is one of the worst holes to find yourself in. So he's got to be right. If the options are, and we're not going to know exactly what the options are, but if somehow someone leaked a whiteboard of the Sixers options again, and we could see exactly what the options were, and they were like signed the wrong. Whoa, balloons! I just got balloons on my screen. Fun. Maybe I'm making a good point. Who knows? We'll find out. If the options were sign the wrong guy, sign a C+, B-, whatever to a big deal, or wait and punt again. Like, you take it. You take the role players and you see what works over the course of the season, and then you find out who becomes available and you make a trade that way. But it really feels like every direction for years now, for like a year and a half at least, has been pointing to this offseason as the cap space offseason. And we kept saying it. We kept making fun of it. Oh, here comes cap space. Here it is. Like, this is going to be it. We got the cap space, the clear cap sheet. The Sixers are going to do it. Finally, they have the cap space. It's all going to work out when they have the cap space. And the idea of another punt on that when this is the plan is just like, come on, man. Like, at a certain point, you just gotta be right. Somebody's got to come here. If that's the plan, you got to execute it. And you can't just go like, well, it's hard. It's like, yeah, we know it's hard. We knew it was hard when you said that this was the plan a year and a half ago. Right. To have the off season with cap space here. So I don't know. I mean, I would understand it, but it also would bum me out in a way of like, come on.
By the way, it's not considering who else has cap space this offseason, really just being Detroit and Orlando from a max perspective, it's a good offseason to have cap space. That
was the point.
Yeah.
That was the entire point. That was Daryl saying publicly and privately, we are going to be the best team, or maybe the only good team that has cap space this offseason. And that is going to be attractive to people to play with Maxey and Embiid. And so if that ends up not being the case, that's either an Embiid problem, or it's a Daryl reading the market wrong problem, or looking at, your options. It's the same with the draft, right? The options look really great when there's like, oh, there's 10 guys who could be available this offseason. Look at any of these 10 guys, amazing. And then when 6 of them re-sign with their own team, and 2 of them get hurt, and one of them's a dick, or failed in the playoffs, and you're like, there's not that many guys. Once you have to pick one,
yeah, it gets a lot harder.
It gets harder because then when it's 10, it's like it's the combination of all 10. The possibilities are endless, and then when there's one, it's like the possibilities are endful, very endful.
An offseason full of endful possibilities.
Yeah, really.
The Philadelphia 76ers. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. And by the way, one more interesting thing from the Fischer article right after the DraftKings thing. Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I had my first... I lost a bunch of futures, DraftKings Sportsbook. I believe I had Jalen Brunson as MVP future. I had a Maxey future. Didn't get it. MVP future, didn't get it. But I won my first playoff bet last night. I've only bet 2 or 3 times for the playoffs. But when I saw that, what's his name, Tyrese Halliburton was out last night, I immediately went to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and I was like, what is the TJ over under for points?
Oh, yeah.
And it ended up being 13.5 at minus 120. And I was like, this is free fucking money. Are you kidding me? So drop, I'm a high roller, drop $30 on the TJ over under 13.5 points. I think he scored 16. That was an easy DraftKings Sportsbook bet. I love DraftKings Sportsbook. When I see something like that, I'm on the lookout for TJ bets. And that was a good TJ bet. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here, if you're not a DraftKings customer yet, new customers get a no sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5 and you get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. So if that had been my first bet, I should have bet $1,000 on it because then I would have gotten a no sweat, credit back, a bonus bet back equal to that if I hadn't won. But I did win because TJ McConnell over 13.5 when Halliburton's out is easy money. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code RTRS. That's if you're a new customer. That is code RTRS for new customers to get a no sweat bet up to $1,500. If your first bet doesn't hit, only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Got to be 21. See show notes for details. So this was the thing.
Sorry, I came very close to winning a 7. I'm in Phoenix, so I can do DraftKings, which I can't do in California.
Right.
I came very close to winning a 7-leg parlay last night.
Whoa, what was it? Can you tell me what it was?
Well, it would have been Pacers money line, so that was part of it. So that was immediate loss. But I was like one Pascal Siakam block and like one Jaylen Brown point away from hitting all of it. TJ being included in part of it. It was. It would have been something.
The long same
just
game
screaming
parlays.
for a Pascal Siakam block. There was a play at the end with Drew, like where he kind of bodied Siakam and then went up with it and got fouled and won.
Oh, in the last 30 seconds or whatever.
In the last 30
minute.
seconds.
Yeah.
And if that, I mean, that was very close to the block that I needed, which would have maybe won him the game. And it was very close.
The long leg, the multi-leg same game parlay bets are a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun. Yeah,
I can't help it. Once I'm here, I'm like, okay, $10 to win all the money in the world.
Yep,
That's right.
$10 to win 1,600. Give it to me. Give it to me. So, as you were saying, further on in the Jake Fischer article, in the event that Philadelphia is unable to land a big fish this summer, look for the Sixers to flush out their roster with similar non-guaranteed money as of the past season's approach. Philadelphia, sources said, will prioritize being nimble with salaries in order to move whenever the next disgruntled star becomes available. Rival executives around the league are both applauding Minnesota and Boston's starry team builds, but optimistic both the Wolves and the Celtics will be unable to keep all their top pieces in place the deeper the NBA wades into this new second apron era. When you think about, obviously Minnesota's eventually going to have to pay Anthony Edwards, which means a ton for Cat, a ton for Gobert, a ton for Edwards, Naz Reid, all that stuff. And the Celtics,
I mean, and they're good enough. They have to pay the luxury tax. It just has to happen when you make the conference finals. You just you're a big billionaire owner. Like
for sure. The problem with second apron is it makes it tough to even navigate like constructing a roster. That's the problem with the second apron too. Sure. And then of course, the Celtics are paying Jaylen Brown, paying Jason Tatum, paying Drew Holiday. Then KP is a free agent, and then whenever Derek White is up, like that's a lot of people to pay. Mm-hmm. So the Sixers sources said took note of Indiana's 2-year splurge for Bruce Brown that became the biggest salary headed back to Toronto in exchange for Siakam. Veteran wings like Klay Thompson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would fall on the Sixers list of targets for a 1+1. So you go almost like the Redick contract, except the second year is an option or non-guaranteed or something. KCP somehow ends up on winning teams all the time. Is a good player, helpful player. Klay Thompson looks cooked to me, though. A 1+1, he would certainly be more helpful than Buddy Hield would be my guess. So, maybe. But to your point, that method, and also by the way mentioned the possibility of if the Bulls are willing to give an asset to get off of Zach Lavine, something like trading for Zach Lavine to get a trade asset with Zach Lavine too. Like understanding all of these options, it would be tough. It would be a tough look for them, and I understand it. Just the role players, or taking back an asset for Zach Lavine, or a 1+1, paying $40 million a year for Klay Thompson when the goal is, a star and a contender. Also understanding that it is probably the right thing, but would be tough this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much patience you can have with Embiid on the team and now on the other side of 30. You just can't bank on it. You just got to be right. I mean, it's at a certain point, like having a B offseason is not going to do it. There have been enough mistakes over the last 7 years where they have, and the they includes many different people, but they have not succeeded in building like enough of a good team to win at this level. when 18 other teams at that time have made the conference finals, the Sixers have not. And you have one of the best players in the world. And so because of those mistakes and because of the years that it's taken, we are running out of time. And you gotta nail it. You gotta have an A+ offseason. You just have to do it. There's really no other option. Or Embiid is going to leave at a certain point and the Sixers will have to rebuild, or he'll just never win it, get far in the playoffs because they failed him, and he also obviously failed many times himself. But this will be the first season that Embiid played without Jahlil Okafor or Tobias Harris on the team. And that is important to say and say again.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. And so if there's ever a time to hit a home run, it is now. So you just have to do it right. And if you say like, hey man, there really is no other option. We were wrong in thinking the cap space thing was going to be a boon for us. The best thing we can do is sign some role players, keep all our picks together, draft somebody that we think will improve in value so we can maybe use them as a centerpiece of a trade or some kind of trade, or at least like a little tantalizing sweetener, and reload at the deadline. But that's half a season that you don't have anymore of Joel. Like, time is running out. There is not an endless amount of punting you can do. Time is running out. And so if there's not an imperfect option, you kind of got to get, not a perfect option, you kind of got to go with the imperfect one and be right about it. Like, you just have to be right. There has to be organizational cohesion and being right about whether that's from the coaching staff, from the medical staff, from the front office, from Embiid, from Maxey at this point, who's going to sign a big fat contract. Like, everybody's got to be on the same page. Like, there's obviously a big chance of failure no matter who you get, but you need everybody to be fully on the same page, because from all the dawdling and fuck ups, we're at close to the end of the road for one of the best players in franchise history. And so this is it. It has to be it. I'm going to say it every podcast, every fucking time. It has to be it. It has to be it. So get it fucking right. And like, clock's ticking.
Relationship advice. We haven't done this. Well, the clock's almost really clock's almost, the buzzer's almost going. Alarm's almost up. Relationship advice. We haven't done in a while.
I keep my heart under my pillow with my teeth and other lies. I've been waiting on your halo just to shine the light.
Eliza Hardy Jones of The Ricky and the War on Drugs with our relationship advice music. This comes from Anonymous. Hi, Spike, Mike, and CJ. It's off-season mode, so I don't feel bad posing a relationship question to you all. I dated a girl from Tinder for 5 months last winter. She broke up with me unexpectedly. I really enjoyed my time with her. She was a very active person, always had cool dates planned. I've been doing my best to move on and put that relationship in the past, but I'm having one problem. I can't spend time near Old City anymore. She lives there, and we spent so much time at the restaurants and bars in that neighborhood, it brings up some fresh feelings every time I visit to go hang with different friends. Is there a way to reclaim this neighborhood in my head? Do I just avoid the bars and spots we used to visit and let time heal? I'm in my mid-20s, and I live in the city, so Old City is frequently a destination for potential first dates, bar crawls, meetups. Has anyone ever ruined a bar street store for you because of past feelings? Am I overthinking this? No basketball question. I'm not allowing myself to think about basketball again until August.
So smart.
Yeah, good idea. Think about relationships. Don't think about basketball. I used to live in Old City. I can't believe that people hang out in Old City. Maybe it's just because I'm old and whatever. My advice to you is just go out with different people until Old City is not a problem for you anymore. If you need to avoid, I've had to avoid maybe one place, but I've never had to avoid a whole section of a city. I understand the issue that you're going through. It will bother you a lot less if you're dating somebody that you enjoy. That is the best way to have her not ruining she is not ruining anything for you, obviously, but the best way to have that part of the city not ruined for you is to go there with somebody else you like. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, it's like exposure therapy. You want
Yes.
to take, you can take some time away. It's like me with the NBA playoffs. Like you take some time away when it hurts, and then you can go back in there and go like, oh, fucking Al Horford has hit 7 threes in this game. And you just, go to the spots you like. And sometimes it makes you upset and you push through it.
Yeah.
And you hate Al Horford.
Yeah. Now, look, there are other parts of town you could go to, clearly. You could go to, obviously the cool parts of South Philadelphia. You go to the Rittenhouse, you go to Fishtown, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to go back to Old City, you just got to power through it, buddy. So the hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week, 2 of them. One of them comes from ZR1C Vet. I wonder if Mike plays in the same league that Jason McIntyre from the Colin Cowherd show plays in. Colin Cowherd always makes fun of him and his men's league. Are you in the same men's league as Jason McIntyre from the Herd?
I don't know. I don't know him.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll have to show a picture of him to you. CJ,
Okay.
could you find a picture of Jason McIntyre? See if he's in Mike's league.
Podcast on podcast violence.
Yeah.
That would be something.
Or just basketball, violence basketball. Is he the guy who hit you in the face? That's what everybody's wondering.
That was my nephew, but I'm sure if there's 2 podcasters against each other, everybody would, the groans emanating from the rest of the league would really be loud. Okay, CJ sent a link in the chat.
Do you know this man?
He looks kind of familiar.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
And then the second hard to stomach comment of the week, this is one for CJ. Can you guys start adding timestamps to these? Are you pro or con timestamp in the pod description, CJ?
I always put the timestamp of when the pod officially begins.
Yes.
To skip through the filter in. And at some point early on, you had expressed that you were against timestamps because it takes away from the integrity of listening to.
Oh, the entire pod?
Yeah.
Really?
So then I just didn't really care. Every 6 months, someone comments, and I'm like, maybe that would be helpful. But then I stopped doing it. But I always do the first that first important timestamp. But we could always.
I'm not too against it anymore. If I was at one point,
Sure.
I do care about the integrity of the pod, but it doesn't seem like telling people when things happen is. I have a lot of weird thoughts and rules. It doesn't seem like that one should be one. So
That's fair. Yeah.
So I think we could do that.
Yeah.
Some voicemails and emails. This email came from Dan to writesRickySanchez@gmail.com. This is a fuck, marry, kill for Mike. Person number 1, Tommy Alter. Person number 2, the referee that said to you, "Ball don't lie,"
And ejected me.
and ejected you. And the third is Doc Rivers.
I'm killing the ref, 100%. Not a question for me.
Okay.
I'm absolutely marrying Tommy. He's there for you. He's there. It seems like the most supportive guy in the world. He's got connections. What a lovely marriage that would be to a guy. I don't have to know what his job is or what he does, but he does it. And sure, I'll fuck Doc. As far as a one and done deal, you don't have to get into any long relationship with Doc would end poorly. But maybe like one night, your best player is out. You need him to cobble together a bad roster and win a game. Absolutely. One night with Doc.
Oh man, talk about a documentary. One Night with Doc. Sounds like a good one to me. 833 Lickface is our voicemail number. This is also Mike focused. This voicemail.
Hey guys, long time listener, first time caller. I wanted to get your take on this. I know the ref talk for Mike has gone back and forth, and I completely could not agree more with him on everything he said. I've had a long-standing take with my buddies when we play basketball, and not to sound too much like Mike on that. If you let players call their own fouls, the game would be better officiated. Now, it might have a couple of fights within the game, but that happens in hockey, so like why can't we have maybe you try to recreate less of a fight and more of a duel. So like you get like the rock, paper, scissors on certain calls. But I think overall could be a solution to why referees are so bad. Because when you've been fouled, and if you start calling too many fouls, people will say, hey, that guy sucks. Stop calling so many fouls. They even still foul. I mean, it works during pickup most of the time. I don't know. Probably not the best take, but I want to give it a try.
What do you think of self-policing in the men's league basketball space?
Well, I mean, the reason it works in pickup, I'm in a couple pickup games with like regular rotation of people, is that you have to have some sort of integrity, or you will see these people next week, and
Right.
and you will get sort of iced out, or the eye rolls that you endure from your constant foul calling and stuff. And then if you do disagree, which happens obviously a lot, you just, defense shoots, and if they make it, then you keep going. But I think in a league game where you don't know people as well, I think that would be kind of tough. I like it in spirit, but I like it as far as we live in a society, have some integrity and honor. But I think because of you're really trying to win, whereas in pickup you're trying to win obviously, but you mix up the teams, all that stuff. It's a little bit easier in pickup with people that you know.
Also, when free throws are involved, it becomes different. I mean, every
Yeah.
pickup game I've ever played in, there's no free throws. You just get
Sure.
if you get the foul, you just get the ball back.
Yeah, and if there's a running clock, then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
are we stopping the clock to argue about this? Like, what's going on? Yeah, it might be tough.
Yeah. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Briggs Auction. We love Briggs Auction. Family owned and operated auction house in Delco, briggsauction.com. A lot of fun. They've been fucking auctioning it up this summer. I think there were like 3 of them going on last week, or 3 in the last 2 weeks. Time for the CJ Briggs Auction item of the week.
Yeah, so we got some multiple items here.
This is the one that is ending on May 30th, correct? This is that auction?
Yeah, I believe this is the Fine Estates auction.
Yep.
A lot of old signs, a lot of old vintage signs.
Yep.
So speaking of different areas of Philadelphia that you may want to avoid if you have an ex there, you can be reminded if you had a date on Waverly Street. Beautiful street, Waverly Street. I love that.
Ooh, I love the Arch Street sign.
Yeah, I love Arch Street. And then
My brother
we got
used to
some
live on Arch.
Oh yeah. There's a bunch of other old signs as well. We got this on sale here Kodak film. I imagine this was like outside of a storefront at some point, or maybe like inside of a store somewhere. Very cool. And
This
then
is in the advertising section, I think, in that auction, right? Like it was.
do you go through?
I go through the sections. Yeah. So for
okay.
each auction, there's like collectibles, there's furniture, vehicles, clothing, whatever. And I always go to collectibles first, and then I go to art, and then I go to books.
Interesting. I always just scroll all, so I'm just scrolling through hundreds of items. But this one is a very old one. I'm getting into old clocks recently, and
AMP Coffee.
1961.
There you go.
And I don't know. I like the simple black and white and red.
It looks like
color
a
scheme.
diner clock.
Yeah, it pops. I like it.
And actually in the current auction, there's like an arcade game section. So a bunch of working pinball machines. There was like a Rocky and Bullwinkle one. That's the greatest thing about Briggs Auction. You never know what you're going to find. Cool shit all the time. Whether it is furniture, whether it is an Art Street sign to make you forget about your ex. There's a Jaguar in the current one. There's a couple of vehicles. There's art. There's books. It's amazing. Go to briggsauction.com or download the app in the App Store or Google Play. Check in weekly. You never know what you're going to find. It's awesome. And if you have a bunch of stuff, you need downsizing, or you inherited a bunch of stuff and you need a place to auction it, just send an email to info@briggsauction.com. If you happen to win an auction, there's open pickup on Saturdays. They can do it by appointment during the week, or they can work with you on a shipper. We love Briggs Auction. briggsauction.com. Briggs Auction. Briggs Auction. This comes from what do we do? This comes from Max, writes to RickySanchez@gmail.com. Spike and Mike, big fan of the pod, have listened to every single episode since Ben's rookie year. Sorry to hear. One trade idea I haven't seen floated is Cade Cunningham. 22 points a game, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 5.4 three-point attempts on 35% shooting. He's in the final year of his deal before hitting restricted free agency, where he'll be eligible for a rookie scale max, currently making $14 million. Detroit still stinks and hasn't accomplished anything with Cade leading the team. Do they really want to give this guy a max extension? What do you think of the idea of trade for Cade Cunningham? I get the sense you like him, right?
Oh, I love him. I think he's awesome. Obviously has not had like huge amount of team success. At
Been
this
hurt
level.
a good bit too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also, but like a bad, they're not going to rush him back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a take. I'm sure some of those injuries were like a take the rest of the season off type of things. They just hired a new president of basketball operations in Trajan Langdon. There is a chance that they could like decide the whole, the whole well is poisoned. Let's just basically start over because everything is so bad. I would love Cade Cunningham. This is the kind of risk type thing that if you hit on it, and if Daryl has the relationship here to do it before it becomes like a bidding war type of deal, because someone could obviously outbid the Sixers for Cade. Jaden Ivey is another example of something that is a similar thing, probably at a lower scale since Cade was number one pick and has had more success in the league. Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome. He's amazing. He has not played on a good team, so it's hard to know like how much the winning DNA stuff that he has in him. Like, could he get those 50-50 balls in games that matter? Like, could he hit big shots in the playoffs? But playing off of Maxey and Embiid, he can catch and shoot. He can run pick and roll. He can defend. He was a really, really good passer. He's a smart player. It's a risk, obviously, because he's a young guy on one of the worst teams of all time. But he was number one pick. He's incredible. He would be great. And obviously, players, guys haven't watched the Pistons that much this year, or the past few years. I mean, this would be the kind of big swing type of move. I don't think it happens. I don't think Detroit's going to trade him, and if they do trade him, they'll probably trade him to somebody else that can pay him more. But if you're Daryl and you want to go, hey, we'll give you 4 first-round picks for this guy, and you can basically start over and do the Trajan Langdon full rebuild, start from scratch. That would be awesome. I would love that as a swing. He's young. He's good. He's got, I would love it. I haven't thought about it too much because it seems unlikely. And it doesn't seem likely that Daryl would want to trade for a young player like that, But man, that'd be my language. That would definitely be my language.
So I actually don't love him, but I do think he would fit in pretty well with what they have currently and would demand less of him. All he has to be is, he doesn't have to be the first best player on the team. He can be the third best player on the team, and it would be fine. He's not like, he doesn't like pop to me ever when I watch him, but he's a good player, and I think he would make them better pretty much instantly. So wouldn't be first on my list, but I think it would be interesting.
He's so smooth. I mean, he can shoot. He's hit a lot of, he's had to take a lot of tough shots. They're a bad team. I'm not saying that he can be the best player on a championship team or even the second best right now, but he gets the line. He's gotten the line more and more each year. Shoots in the mid 80s from the line. You get him off ball. You get him running pick and roll. You get guys helping off of him. Having Embiid as a pick and pop threat. Maxey coming off screens. It's a really perfect. God, I don't think it's going to happen, but the question is making me really excited about the possibility. And also the idea of it opens your window in such a way, like you can work, if it's Maxey, Cade, and Embiid can be the best player for the next 2 or 3 years. And then if you want to, hopefully Embiid resigns and is here forever. And then he can just become the sort of elder statesman Tim Duncan of the team while Maxey and Cade do most of the other stuff. Like that would be that would open the window in such a real way. Obviously, Cade could never become the guy. He could just top out at being the 30th best player in the NBA or something. But it'd be a much better situation for him to learn and grow into winning habits and play real basketball that matters. And he was a special prospect and has been in Siberia and Detroit, but I still believe in him very much, and I've seen enough to be really, really excited about him on a real team.
833 Lickface is the voicemail number.
Hey, Spike, Mike, and CJ. Love the pod, long-time listener. The biggest takeaway that I've had from these NBA playoffs is that in order for the Sixers to do anything, I think Tyrese Maxey has to become the offensive focal point. If you look at every single team that was left in the Final Four, not one of them has their best player on offense simultaneously guard the other team's best player on defense, or in Embiid's case, protect the rim. Like, they're not the focus of both offense and defense. I think if we were to let Maxey try to blossom into be a 30-point per game scorer, and then whoever else fills around him, and Embiid's more of like a 25-ish a game kind of guy, he can get more efficient shots. He'll be less gassed, exert himself less, potentially less injury, because a lot of injuries come when you are gassed and when you are overextending yourself. I think that's just a more current formula on how to win. We'd love to hear what you guys think about that. Non-basketball question. What was your first album, CD, whatever you bought, I guess? Love the pod. All right, cool. Thanks. Bye.
First album was Spice World.
Really?
I was 6. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty sick.
The first CD I remember buying was CD, but I bought tapes before that. First CD was Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation. First album I remember having was Thriller. It was Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Pretty good.
Bought a lot of tapes in between Thriller and Permanent Vacation. So Maxey is offense focus.
Well, I definitely agree. I've said this for a long time. I would love for Embiid to carry less of a load offensively. I've always said that. I feel like he is so good as a defensive player. It is crazy that he received 0 defensive player. Well, obviously, defensive player of the year, he wouldn't have won because he didn't play enough. But like, when in the
I don't think he can because of his games.
Right, but I'm saying in the there was a poll or whatever of like the best defensive players in basketball, and Embiid wasn't listed in there, which is wild because I do think when he is healthy and able, he is maybe the most impactful defensive player in the league. He just hasn't been that enough and has had to carry such an offensive load that he doesn't he can't commit on that end. And I don't think it can be all Maxey. I think that he is, while he's an excellent player, I don't think he can be like the full offensive engine, but somebody like him and the other guy that they get, I wouldn't mind if Embiid just averaged like 24 points a game this year. Like, I would just be so fine with that. I think part of that was why I wanted to why it was so appealing to me for Embiid to improve as a passer, which he has in the Nick Nurse offense. Like, him being a passing hub where he can just, the double team comes, he quickly gets it out, defense in rotation, have enough quick decision makers, enough shooters, enough athletes to make the defense pay for that. That makes it just so much easier on Embiid because his gravity on offense can just exist without him having to, and help the team offensively without him having to exert himself in that way. Because I think at the end of the day, he is capable of being the best offensive and best defensive player in the league, which is wild. And that is the hope of, if you still believe in the Sixers team ever doing anything at all, that is it. That is it right there. But it requires the Sixers to have better personnel around him and Embiid to have a mindset of, I trust these other guys to make plays so that he can be as impactful as a rim protector as he can be. So smart back there. And when he has to, not as much anymore, obviously, but I still think when he has to, when he's healthy, he can defend anybody in the league, anybody on the perimeter, whatever he has to do. And I would love for another like recommitment to himself on that end with Maxey and fill in the blank superstar. Let's say it's Cade Cunningham, because I'm now very excited about that possibility, even though it's unlikely. That would open things up so much for Joel. There's just no reason why a team like that, then if you get that other guy, then you just go get a ton of athletes and defenders. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because I think that team could be a top 5 offense, top 5 defense in the league.
Well, before you ask me, just a quick thing. It's just too much to ask any one player to be the primary offensive player and the player that the entire defense is built around. Right.
Because even Ant, who sometimes covers the best player on the other team, although Jaden McDaniels does it more often.
But there's still Gobert there.
Gobert back there, yes. I think that part of that is essentially that's part of the issue of having a center as your best player.
Yes.
Is that they're carrying such a load on defense. Sorry.
Just think about the number of offensive players who are the primary offensive player on the team who have such a heavy load that you see them just sort of like watching on defense a lot from an energy standpoint. And here we're talking, and by the way, this is why Embiid just has to be in true best shape of his life, maybe lose 20 pounds this offseason. But I just think if the idea is to get him through healthy for a season, having him be the cornerstone of your offense and cornerstone of your defense is a good way to make sure that he's not healthy. But anyway, go ahead and ask.
So the question is, you have Embiid and Maxey. Say, pick any wing in the middle that they get. Filling out the rest of the roster, would you rather have a ton of guys who can shoot and also like attack closeouts? Think like, I don't know, some like Malik Monk and Cam Johnson types.
Yep.
Or would you rather have physical athletes, defenders who are maybe a little less consistent as shooters? Think like Josh Hart types.
I would rather have the shooters.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
And I would so much rather have the athletes and the defenders.
Yeah,
but
well,
I think you need both. Like it isn't an either or, or you need the shooters to be able to defend, which somebody like Buddy Hield surprisingly did in the Knicks series, even though he wasn't hitting shots.
But he couldn't shoot.
Or you need the athletes to be able to hit shots, which Josh Hart, OG Anunoby did enough of for sure.
To
me, it's like,
by the way,
to us.
But then Josh Hart didn't against Indiana, and all of a sudden they lost.
For sure. I do think they lost because of they just ran out of gas. You just can't play that many minutes and not have it affect you. I would just rather have the athlete. Yeah, I mean, this is the core issue of the core debate of the podcast. I think is get me guys that can get me another possession, that can crash the offensive glass, that can make it easy on Embiid, because you have Embiid and Maxey and whoever the third guy is doing everything. And if they help off of those guys, I think smart players. I'm just thinking of a Josh Hart type, whatever, will make you pay for that. Not just as shooting, but like with rebounds, with cutting, all that stuff. I think if you're faster and more athletic than them, then you can overcome inconsistent shooting in a way. I'm not saying Matisse. I'm not saying somebody that or Ben. I'm not saying somebody that cannot shoot.
Can't shoot. Well, don't you think the real question is like whichever way you go, the player has to be fucking excellent at that thing that you want them to be excellent at. So whether they are the defensive energy guy who can shoot a little bit, he has to be one of the best defensive energy guys. Or if it's a shooter, like Malik Monk, Cam Johnson are awesome shooters, so that skill, that the problem is when you get like the archetype of one of those guys, but they're not quite as good at the thing that you want them to be good at as they actually are.
See, to me, I think the thing that I would want the most of would be like an incredibly high motor.
Right.
And even if someone is not quite I don't think you could be a good defensive player without a high motor. So maybe those I'm parsing here.
Right.
But like those extra possessions, those heady moments, that like the doing whatever it takes. I think part of high motor comes with like selflessness on a basketball court and knowing your role. So it's less of like, I can lock down one-on-one, or I can really make this rotation on a weak side or something like that, and more just like I play the mentality. I just feel like you got to surround Embiid and Maxey with an array of big physical wings who get them extra possessions, who allow them to do the things that they're great at, and take the tougher defensive assignment, like the caller said, and you survive with your offense is, I think, going to be fine with Maxey, Embiid, and whatever the third guy is. Obviously, you'd rather have both, but if it's one or the other, I'm taking defense and motor.
Give me one of each. How about that? Give me
That's
one of
fine
each.
too.
I'll be happy. Fine. Okay, last thing, actually, because I never asked you about it. KOC mentioned to me, I don't think I'll mind, that he just like asked me. He was like, "What about Nick Claxton?" And I was like, immediately, I was like, no. But then he was like, well, most of it, what Embiid does is perimeter based. Is like, he's shooting jumpers, he's pick and popping, he's shooting threes, blah, 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 blah. Nick Claxton can both combo with you as dunker spot guy, rebounding guy, but also backup center guy when you need him to be. Like, would you take a shot on sort of a Twin Towers? And actually, to that extent, if the Celtics win the championship and Porzingis leaves, like, would you take a shot with Porzingis and Embiid at the same time?
No.
No?
No, I just feel so Horfordy, doesn't it?
It does. It does. That's what I thought about. What about Claxton?
I love Claxton. I've always been a Claxton guy. I think his athleticism and tenacity is something I want and have wanted B-ball to sort of embody. I think if you're going to have a guy like that on the court, I would rather it be somebody like Dorian Finney-Smith, who can protect the rim a little bit as a backup four, and also go as a starting four, and also like play some small ball five with, if it's Dorian and, name some guys, Batum and Oubre or something like that as your front court. But Claxton's lack of shooting, I think, hurts them. But I love that kind of player who can guard on the perimeter, switch 1 through 5 pretty capably, and be a dunker spot lob guy, pick and roll guy. I would love, if this is the end of the road for B-ball, and it's been a lovely road with him, Nick Claxton is a guy that I would very much be excited by. I don't necessarily know, clip this for, February when I'm begging for it, but I wouldn't be saying start him and Embiid together quite yet, because I think it takes some of what they're both best at away from them. Maybe in spurts for sure, but I think the lack of shooting would hurt them.
Okay. We will talk to you next time. You think the Wolves can come back, make it a series? Or you think they're dead?
I don't know. I mean, man, Luka, unbelievable. Just
Edwards
killing him, dude. It's been a fun playoffs as much as I've avoided more than I would like to. If the Sixers had not made the playoffs, I would really be enjoying this.
Edwards and Towns shooting like a combined 28% in the series when you've lost both games by or one game by 1 game by 3, or combined 4 points is pretty rough.
It's tough, man. I mean, Pacers should be up 2-1. Wolves should at least be split.
Could be up 2-0.
Could be up 2-0.
Yeah,
it's tough. It feels like when you're rooting. I'm rooting for the Wolves. I don't dislike Luka as much as some people do. I think he's impressive. It's so fun how, really the best defender who has ever played Luka is Ben Simmons. It's such a random little fact.
Yeah, he did great against
basically,
him, honestly.
Basically no longer in the league, but yeah, always did great against Luka. I wonder if that would still be the case if Ben was still himself. I think the Wolves take Game 3.
Okay.
I think they're too good and overwhelming, but man, I mean, Kyrie and Luka are playing incredible basketball, and Dallas has gotten buy-in of those 2 rim running centers. Lively, I love a rookie Lively playing as well as he is, and Gafford is a rim rolling guy that I've talked about for years. They got athletes around those guys. I think and they're hitting enough shots to make it work. Athletes seem better when they're hitting shots, because you can get
sure
both.
do. Yep.
I think it's more likely that athletes hit shots than it is that a guy like Malik Monk is ever going to be able to defend at a conference finals level intensity, those kinds of that type of. I think one is easier than the other, because shooting comes and goes, right? Consistency. We talked about people getting mad at Covington shooting 40%, which means that sometimes he's going to shoot 1 of 11 or something. But defensive intensity does not waver as much, and so I'd rather go with the consistency there, I guess.
We will talk to you next time. Daryl, don't fuck it up.
Leaving the fart zone.
Don't fuck it. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck escaping the fart zone. We'll talk to you next time. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, no, like face.